I wonder when my phone's gonna give up on me. I have like 4-hour-long videos on here now. I'm gonna start deleting things, moving them.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
I'll take those from you if you want.
Yeah, I apologize. Might be sloppy. What's up?
I thought one of you wasn't gonna be showing up today.
We're here.
Did one of you skip Mayhall's class?
Oh yeah.
Is that you?
I'm not in class, so there you go.
How could you do that to her?
We're about 10 now. Shit. Pull up 10:30. Why did she say that?
Yeah. She did. Because I saw Anna earlier, and Anna told me Neve was going to miss class, so I was in with Dr. Meagle, and she was like, everyone's showing up? I went, yeah, except Anna's not showing, Neve isn't showing up today. And she went, yeah, well, I guess she said Luke. She goes, yeah, Luke might not show up either, because he wasn't in class today.
Yeah. I'm gonna just decided. Well, not decided. I actually just woke up late.
See, what I used to do is if I was going to skip one class, the whole day was gone.
See, I just feel too bad.
That's how you gotta do it.
But, I mean, I was up. I'm like, that's what it is, next one.
You know, I skipped philosophy in between starting for Dr. T's test.
No, it's different. When you're a freshman or a sophomore, then like you could skip one class and show up to the other ones. They don't know who you are yet.
Yeah.
By the time you get to a senior and you're taking all business classes, or a junior,
You're like one of 6 people in class.
yeah.
That is true.
Why is my screen back
So I shared this with all you guys, chapter 5, right?
Yeah, I think you said it last
I
week
don't
already.
remember. What?
Yeah, you shared it last week already.
Yeah.
I think.
So just missing Anna and Neve's homework, and Anna claims she would be here today. We'll see. But what we're talking about today is inflation, its causes, effects, and social consequences. I thought I was going to say. So just like a little rundown of inflation here in the United States. So this is our average single-family home cost in 1970. It was $23,400. If that's how much a home costs nowadays, I could have just not gotten a master's degree and bought a house instead. Average manufacturing wage was $3.36 an hour, and the New York Times was 15 cents. By contrast, in 2011, the average cost of a house was almost $210,000. The average wage was $23.09, and the New York Times cost $2. I think the New York Times is even more expensive than that now, and they might be $2.50. But so these are our inflation rates that we saw over the last 5 decades. You can see, while these are average increases, the 1970s we have the highest inflation rate there. In the 70s we had a lot of issues with inflation. Depending on who you talk to, they'll cite different reasons for it. Dr. Nick's favorite reason to cite inflation is because it was a battle between the Federal Reserve and the presidency that the Federal Reserve ultimately won. Which also gave way to Reaganomics. Now people think that Reaganomics is legitimate, but we all know if you cut taxes, you don't increase the amount of tax money you're gonna take in. Like, that's just not how it works. So hyperinflation, Dr. Mihal talks extensively about hyperinflation in intro. Basically, it's if we see, 200% increases in prices per month, that is hyperinflation. Germany, post World War I, they were seeing 500% per month, which basically means you print money and all of a sudden it's worth half of what it was worth in like that day. I think Venezuela is currently,
They're about to hit, I think they're at like 1,300% at least right now. And then I
a
think,
month or this year.
this year, and I think that by the end of the year, like I think their yearly inflation or something will be like 10,000%.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So we're lucky we don't have that. That's one of the Fed's directives. Full employment, stable prices. Their target is that 2 to 3%. As you see, in the 70s we were at 7%, in the 80s we were still at 5%, but 2 to 3 is generally the goal. Bless you. So what we have is this quantity theory of money, which is an interesting theory. Basically what it says is M times V equals P times T. Money, so the amount of money we have, times the velocity of money, how quickly does money move through the economy, equals the prices times the number of transactions that occur. So people hold money in order to buy goods and services. That makes sense. We talked about that last week. We talked about it the week before that. So the more money they need for transactions, the more money they're going to hold. So transactions T represents the total number of transactions during a given period of time. We could use a year. We could use not a year. We could use a month. Whatever it is. P is the prices. So that's our nominal prices. So P times T is the number of dollars exchanged in a year, right? So the total prices times the number of transactions, that'll give us how much money circulates. So M is the quantity of money, so that's just what we have. So V is the transaction velocity of money, which measures the rate at which money circulates the economy. This, to me, was always the hardest thing to wrap my head around. So if we're going to suppose there are 60 loaves of bread sold in a year at 50 cents per loaf, and we know that the quantity of money is $10, what's the velocity of money going to be? Do you guys know what you're going to substitute into each place?
This is the price.
What was that?
He sets the price.
Yeah.
Based on T is 60 transactions. They sit in one transaction per person.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just a simple algebra problem, right? So 30 equals 10V. So velocity is going to equal 3.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. If you have the homework, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So this seems like a very simplified theory. There's a lot more that goes into it, of course. Like everything with economics, we take the simple model first and then we expand upon it. So this is like that simple classical theory model. So, I think I told you guys this already, but the way I structured the slides, it's very easy to follow the slides in the chapters. So this is just that continuation of this section. So from transactions to income. So since the number of transactions is difficult to account for, T is often going to be replaced with Y. So Y, if we recall, is our GDP, national income. slightly different. So transaction and outputs are related since the more the economy produces, the more goods are bought and sold. That kind of speaks for itself. So if Y denotes the amount of output and P is the prices of items, then the dollar value of outputs is P times Y. So again, we're just replacing T here with Y. How many items do we produce in our economy? Or what's our output in the economy? So money times our velocity equals our prices times output. So in this version, V is called the income velocity of money and tells us the number of times a dollar bill enters someone's income in a given period of time. So the money demand function and the quantity equation. So real money balances, money divided by prices. Measures the purchasing power of the stock of money. So based on the amount of money that we have in the economy, how many items can we purchase?
This is 2 pages.
Okay.
That was that. Sorry.
So if the amount of money is $10 and the price level is 50 cents, I guess this is the same example I just used here, where we got velocity equals 3. How many times will that money change? How many times will it transact? 3 times, essentially. That's how many times it will enter someone's income. But so the money demand function is an equation that shows the determinants of the quantity of real money balances people wish to hold. So, what day did I email this to you guys? Like Friday? On Friday, I was subbing for an Italian class. So I was trying to figure out how to get the superscript here. It took 4 high school seniors and myself to figure out how to get that superscript. But so what all this is saying is M divided by P, demanded. That's all I needed the D for, is to let you guys know that that was demand. Equals K times Y, where K is a constant that tells us how much money people want to hold for every dollar of income. And people want to hold money because holding money makes transactions easier. You can't buy things unless you have some sort of money. So since the money demand function equals just M over P, then M over P equals K times Y. So we can get through this long bullet that K is just, V is just 1 over K, where K is that constant of what portion of money do people want to hold. Make sense so far?
So what did you say about the D? It was only to show that.
It's demand. It's
So it's not like to a some power?
no power. It's just
Yeah,
1
'cause
over
that-
K.
That's what it looks like.
Oh, for here you mean?
Yeah.
Well, do you remember when you do like a supply and demand function, you have quantity demanded equals
Yeah.
quantity supplied. I guess it should be a capital D. In this textbook, they use a lowercase.
Oh,
And then when they equal, you're at Q star. This is all it's saying is M over
Yeah.
D demanded.
yeah.
Because M is just the supply, right? So these are some of our assumptions of constant velocity. So the quantity equation can be viewed as a definition where velocity is the ratio of the nominal GDP. Nominal GDP here, PY, right? I have it right there, PY, the quantity of money. So if we assume V is constant, then we have a useful theory about the quantity theory of money. So that means we can change our other variables to keep our equation the same. Like if V doesn't change, but something over here decreases, that means M has decreased. We could always adjust M to keep this constant. So velocity doesn't change if the money demand function changes. Oh, velocity does change, sorry, if the money demand function changes. So if people demand a different amount of money, if they want to hold on to a different amount of money, then velocity is changing. Then we have to assume other changes in this equation.
Is that similar to how in stats, like degrees of freedom?
Can you
Like
remind me of degrees of freedom?
So like you can change that many variables, but you can't change like one of them. So like let's say you, now I need to explain my knowledge here. No, never mind. I just,
Well, like if you know that output has decreased,
yeah.
right? So output has decreased, prices haven't changed.
Oh yeah,
So the left side has gone down. That means
you can,
one of these has changed. Which one is it? Then you have to investigate, and then you could always change them to get everything back up to normal,
okay.
supposedly. So what it says here is with the introduction of ATMs, people held less cash, causing an increase in the velocity of money. Which makes sense. They weren't holding on to money, so it was transacting quicker. They didn't have to hold, money's people held less cash, causing an increase in velocity. Yes, because velocity goes back to that money demand function of how much people want to hold. So therefore, a change in M causes a change in our nominal output. So if the velocity is fixed, a change in M causes a proportional change in output. So if we remember, I don't know if I wrote it 2 weeks ago, but sometimes we'll use a Z to say that that's our proportion that we're changing by, because we had the function of something, so it's capital and labor. Remember that? So the Z just means it's a proportional change. Same thing here. So if M changes, this will change proportionally.
So, does that mean that because of like ATMs like that, prices go up and output changes as well? Or is,
No, because the money demand function changed, V changed. It doesn't mean this stuff changed.
people demanded less money, so velocity changed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, money prices and inflation. So there are 3 bullets in here about some assumptions we make, but I'm pretty sure I typed them out. So the factors of production and the production function determine the level of output, Y. So that makes sense, that's an assumption we've held on to for a while. If you don't have factors of production, you can't produce anything. The money supply M, set by the central bank, determines the nominal value of output, P times Y. Because if the money supply is significantly smaller, you can't have high prices for everything. Prices would have to decrease proportionally relative to the money supply. And the price level is the ratio of the nominal level of output to the level of output. So price is the only thing that makes it nominal. Productivity capability determines real GDP. Again, because real GDP is just how much can we produce. And the quantity of money determines, did I just say that one? Oh, the quantity of money determines nominal GDP. It's saying P and M are related, essentially. So the GDP deflator is the ratio of the nominal GDP to real GDP. Again, that's something we've learned before. So since Y is already fixed by the production function and factors of production, then a change in the money supply causes a change in the price level. So again, we're saying V is constant, Y is fixed by our function. So if M changes, P is going to change. That's what causes our inflation. So, last little sentence. So the quantity theory of money is a theory about inflation. How do we get inflation, essentially? Sine
So prices are dependent on the amount of money in the system.
Yeah, which kind of just makes sense, right? So signage, so the revenue from printing money. Essentially what we do is the government prints money in order to make money. Well, they're physically making the money, but also they're kind of lending money to themselves forcefully from the public. So there are a couple of ways that the government can get money. They can either raise revenue through taxation, they can borrow money from the public, they can borrow money from other governments, or they can just print it. If you just keep printing money, that's how you get hyperinflation. So we don't want to print too much. But so signage is revenue raised by printing money. So it comes from the term senor, but I guess that's not how you pronounce it. I don't know. It seems like you shouldn't pronounce it that way. And it means feudal lord. So the feudal lords had the exclusive right to coin money. You know, their faces would be stamped on it. So printing money causes inflation, and it's essentially some sort of inflation tax. As prices rise, the value of money decreases, so inflation is like a tax on the current value of money. Does that make sense to everyone so far?
Wait, what? So as prices rise, the value of money decreases?
Yes. So if I have $1, right,
Yeah.
and the government goes and prints $1 trillion,
Yeah.
the value of my dollar is significantly lower.
Yeah.
But they printed that money when they printed the money when those dollars could buy whatever a dollar could buy, a bag of chips, right? But now they printed all that money, they bought all their bags of chips, and the money's now in circulation, and now those dollars don't buy bags of chips anymore, they buy half a bag of chips. So they printed the money, were able to buy all these goods at a previous price,
Mhm.
and now all of a sudden the prices decrease.
Oh, okay.
So that amount of money wouldn't have bought all those things originally. So by printing the money, they're lowering the value of everyone else's money,
Oh, okay.
which is how they're making money. I know I said money like 6 times in that sentence, but yes.
Wait, can you go back? How are they making money?
So they're not actually making money, they're not taking money in, but they're printing.
Okay, yeah.
So once they print it, they can go and buy things with it, but just because they print it, it doesn't mean it's in circulation.
Yeah.
So they can buy things at today's price, whatever today's price is. What was that?
They hold their reserves.
The government doesn't hold money in reserves, though. Banks hold money in reserves. But so they print the money, they spend it, they buy whatever it is they need with the money that they just spent. But now the value, because now that money's in circulation, everyone else's dollar has decreased in value.
They're causing inflation.
Yeah. So once that inflation hits, the government bought all these goods at a lower price by saving money by printing it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So today, the government earns about 3% from signage. This is also how we kind of paid for our revolution. So the Continental Congress originally used signage as the primary source for paying for goods and services, so they just kept printing money essentially. But so by the end of the war, these dollars were worth much less than when they started. So it wasn't 3%, let's say it was 15%, you know? Like it was a much different amount. And that caused them to sign the Mint Act of 1792, which meant they used gold and silver as the basis of commodity money. They couldn't just print money all willy-nilly, you know, they had to have some sort of standard. I guess it was like 10 years ago at this point. My mother is a conspiracy theorist, and she watched all of these Ron Paul videos. So you two probably definitely know who Ron Paul is, but do you guys know who Ron Paul is? So he ran for president 8 years ago. He ran not for president, he ran for the Republican nomination for president. He didn't win. But he released all these videos because he wants to audit the Federal Reserve and go back to the gold standard because he thinks that it's illegal that the government prints money in order to make money through inflation. And he released a lot of videos on it. So he wants the government to go back to the gold standard. No one wants to go back to the gold standard. Like, no government uses the gold standard anymore. It would be kind of pointless at that point, because like we always kind of trust each other's money, right? But I always thought that was funny. So inflation rates, inflation and interest rates, how are these two things interrelated? So we have two interest rates. We have the real interest rate and we have the nominal rate. I know I asked about other classes you guys have taken a lot, but have any of you taken international finance with Dr. Nick?
Yep.
Yes? What's your major?
Finance.
Are you all finance?
No.
Oh, no, what are you?
Management of the minor economics.
Oh, okay. Alright, so you might not have to take it. But it's a very interesting,
I'm just taking his international business class.
yeah, but that's different. International finance, he talks about a lot of different things, but he focuses on this a lot. But so we have the nominal interest rate, so that's the rate that the bank pays you or that you would pay the bank, you know, it goes either way. And so the real interest rate is the increase in possible purchasing power. So even if you earn 8%, but inflation rate is 3%, that doesn't mean you can still buy 8% more goods. You can only buy 5% more goods because the price of everything went up 3%. So I is always going to denote the nominal interest rate. R denotes the real interest rate. And there's supposed to be a pi symbol here. Pi denotes inflation. So the real interest rate equals our nominal interest rate minus the inflation rate. All right, Fisher. So we can also rewrite it as the interest rate equals the real interest rate. The nominal interest rate equals the real interest rate plus inflation. So the nominal interest rate can only change if real interest rates change or if the inflation rate changes. Right? So the quantity theory of money with the Fisher equation tells us how money growth affects the nominal interest rate. So at a 1% increase in the money supply leads to a 1% increase in the price level, which leads to a 1% increase in the nominal interest rate. Again, everything is proportional, everything is constant. I guess constant and proportional are conflicting words, but we're going to go run with it for this. So the Fisher effect, the one-for-one relationship between the inflation rate and the nominal interest rate. So again, if the inflation rate goes up 1%, the nominal interest rate will go up 1%. Essentially saying that the real interest rate will stay constant here. Does it always? No. So we have two kinds of interest rates. We have ex ante and ex post. So are all of you familiar with poker? Not poker. Yeah, poker.
Yep.
All right, so you know everyone has to ante in the beginning? That's right from the start. That's always how I try to remember it. It's just what you're assuming, like you just gotta throw the money in, right in the beginning. So that is the rate that the borrower and the lender expect when the loan is made. So they're expecting a certain inflation rate. So the inflation interest rate minus the expected inflation, where E represents our expectancy. And then we have the ex post real interest rate. So that's the real interest rate that actually occurs. So that's at the end of the game, post, after. So ex ante real interest rate is determined by equilibrium in the market for goods and services. Ex post essentially is if you have a 30-year mortgage and the bank, well, usually it doesn't happen with the mortgage, but let's say you have a 1-year loan out for whatever it is, and the bank assumes there's going to be a 4% interest rate, inflation rate, but there's really going to be like a 5% interest rate. No one knows that until the end of the year, right? That's when we find out all that information. It's after. What was inflation actually? So there is a cost of holding money. We already talked about that with seigniorage, right? If you hold on to money, eventually the government's going to print more money and you can't buy as many goods. So the nominal interest rate is the cost of holding money. That's our opportunity cost. We love talking about that. So assets other than money earn a real return. Money earns an expected real return of negative expected pi. So the cost of holding money is the real interest rate minus negative expected inflation. So it's really the real interest rate plus inflation, which is the interest rate. So the quantity of money demand depends on the price of holding money. So the demand for real money balances depends on both income and nominal interest rate. So again, we go back to that quantity demand function, that money demand function. M over P demanded equals L I Y. Again, I is our interest rate, and Y is going to stand for what? Yeah, or
Output.
income. We use it for how much has been produced, or what's the income, essentially, in the economy. And we use L because money is the most liquid asset. That's really it. We can't use M again. Can't keep reusing letters to represent different things. The higher the Y, the more money demanded. And the higher the I, less money demanded. If interest rates are really high, you're going to want to throw your money into some sort of savings account or whatever and earn more money. That's just how it is. All right. All right, so we got future money and current prices. So changes in the price level again are changes in inflation. Prices go up, we've had inflation. So inflation affects the nominal interest rate through the Fisher effect. That was that equation we just talked about. And that rule, if we increase the money supply, inflation's also going to increase. So the nominal interest rate affects the demand for money, again, because people will hold on to money if interest rates are really high, and they'll save it, or they'll spend money if it's not. Or maybe they won't spend more money just because interest rates are low, but they're not going to be more inclined to save it, essentially. So you can replace the I in this equation with the real interest rate plus expected inflation. So this equation says that the level of real money balances depends on the rate of inflation, essentially. So the quantity theory of money states that today's money supply determines today's price level. This remains partially true when the nominal interest rate and the level of if the nominal interest rate and the level of output are held constant. But we know that the nominal interest rate does not stay constant, it changes. It changes in the market, it's just determined. So the general money demand equation implies that the price level depends on today's money supply and the money supply expected in the future. Because people make decisions based on expectations, right? How many of you would be here getting a college degree if you thought no one needs a college degree in 4 years? You'd spend time in college if you thought none of these jobs will exist?
Probably not, no.
Yeah, no. You'd find something else to do. Every decision we make is based on what we expect for the future. Almost every decision we make. So if the Fed announces that it will increase the money supply, this causes people to expect higher money growth and therefore inflation. So through the Fisher effect, it causes higher nominal interest rates through higher inflation rates. It reduces demand for real money balances, but since the Fed has not yet increased the quantity of money, it leads to a higher price level today. So that's that thing. That's why the Fed's always cautious. Once they make a decision, it gets priced into the market. Once they make an announcement, people make their decisions today based on those expectations of what's going to happen in the future.
When the Fed decides to adjust interest rates, doesn't it take like a year for it actually to,
What do you mean by they decide to adjust interest rates?
like, so if they set the rate at whatever the rate is, like, would be the Treasury yield, I guess?
Well, so they don't set the rate. They have a target rate, and they get the target rate by selling and purchasing government bonds.
Okay. This is if they're trying to,
Not government bonds. T-bills, sorry.
T-bills, yeah. So if they're trying to raise interest rates, like they have been saying, they just purchase more.
No, they sell.
They sell, sorry.
Yeah. bonds work counterintuitively. To increase the interest rate, they have to sell a bunch of bonds. They have to like flood the market. Essentially make it less valuable. Because bonds pay off at the end. So, I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'm actually lost myself now. I remember seeing something about the expected effects of the Fed saying, okay, we're gonna raise interest rates by selling off T-bills. You wouldn't feel those effects until a year later.
Well, actually, one of the things we're going to talk about is we have different types of inflation. We have shoestring inflation, we have menu price inflation. So, interest rates will start changing very quickly.
Yeah, well, like you just said, based on expectation.
Right, but inflation itself, that's harder to immediately price into the market because maybe it's the next slide, maybe it's not. But let's say you own a restaurant and you hear the Fed's going to increase interest rates, you think prices are going to go up. Are you going to go out today and print new menus?
Yeah.
You'll go out today and print new menus?
If prices are gonna go, I'm confused.
So
Prices are
generally, a restaurant won't go out today and print new menus. They'll print a new menu in 6 months, or they'll print a new menu in a year, because it's costly to print menus.
Okay.
It's definitely one of these slides coming up, but there are a lot of different ways that or not just restaurants, but businesses adjust for inflation, and that's what makes inflation more of like we can't price it in today, but we'll have to see how things work out in a year.
Okay.
That's why you don't see that effect for a while. All right, so we have social costs. Oh, yes, social costs. So we have the layman's view and the classical response. So the average person believes that inflation takes away their raises. So no one likes inflation, generally. The purchasing power of labor is determined by the marginal productivity of labor. So if the government slows the rate of inflation, then workers' wages will rise slower, generally. And the classical theory believes that a change in price level is simply a change in the unit of measurement. So if we're measuring our heights and we use inches, but then we measure our heights again and we decide we want to use centimeters, the number will be larger, but the unit is different. That's all classicalists believe, because that dollar isn't the same dollar. Dollar a year from now is not the same dollar as a dollar today. It's changed. So because of this, well, not because of this, but there are many reasons why, but most economists believe that the social costs of inflation are minimal, essentially. So really, the public worries more about inflation than economists do. Unless it's really high inflation, that's a different story.
Is there that's not actually true then?
What?
The reasons for the layman terms is actually truth? Is there truth behind there, or is there mainly just,
What do you mean?
like, is that, like, kind of, urban myth something about inflation, or is that,
No, these are facts.
okay, I mean, like, the takes away a rate, raises.
No, the average person believes that it takes away
But
the
that's not
rate.
true.
It can be, but it doesn't take away the rate. It's a very tricky, that's a very tricky conversation. Because there are different ways that companies could decrease your income, but if your wage goes up 3% and if your raise was 3% and inflation goes up 3%, your raise has technically gone away, but you have the same purchasing power. You haven't lost any money. So raises essentially are just to keep track with cost of living. There's a difference between a promotional raise and just a cost of living adjustment. Do you get what I'm saying? So we have expected inflation, and then eventually we talk about, the next slide I think is unexpected inflation. So distorting effects of inflation tax on the amount of money people hold, people hold. So higher inflation rate leads to a higher nominal interest rate, which leads to a lower real money balance because people are gonna put their money away and hopefully earn more money through interest rates. So the shoe leather cost is the cost of going to the bank more often to take out money. Because you're not holding on to it, you're leaving it in the bank because you want to earn money on it, so you have to keep going back to get money out. And then the menu cost, this is what I was trying to get at, is the cost of changing prices for businesses. So businesses oftentimes won't change prices immediately. Maybe they'll change prices every year or every couple of years, but they won't change them every month. Unless everyone knows we're all experiencing high inflation, that'd be different, you know. So the higher rate of inflation, the greater the price in relative prices. Again, price level is not. So when inflation-induced variability in relative prices has led to microeconomic inefficiencies. When inflation induces, that should be an S, variability in relative prices, it leads to microeconomic inefficiencies in the allocation of resources, which is a very technical way of saying inflation makes it harder for people to make decisions. So the purchasing of more goods at the end of the year when they are relatively less expensive, or maybe you'll purchase goods now. It all depends on what you expect your dollar to do. So many provisions in the tax code do not take into account inflation. So the measure of income has a nominal rate rather than real capital gains. So I think in the United States, capital gains is if you sell a asset within a year and earn any amount of money, no matter what. But that tax, so you only get taxed on that amount as an income at 30%, whatever your income bracket is. It's not taking into account inflation, essentially.
It's only for holding it for, you say, less than a year?
Yeah, so if you buy a bunch of stock, right? And you buy it today, and in tomorrow, and then in a week it goes up 20%. You sell it, you've just earned 20% on your investment, right? That 20% you're gonna get taxed on as if it was an income for this year.
Okay.
Where there's a different tax code as if you have a long-term
So
investment.
I hold it for a year and a week and then I sell it.
Yeah, that'd be different. Then it's only 15%. So inconveniences of living in a world where prices and the value of money changes. So that's just kind of like one of those things that happens. The price of money changes, the value of money changes. But then we also have unexpected inflation. So it arbitrarily redistributes wealth among individuals. Originally I had both of these answers here, A and B, but I want you guys to think about this. Who is better off if the inflation is lower than expected? Who's better off if it's higher than expected? If I take out a loan, am I better off when inflation is low, or is the bank better off when inflation is low?
If it's lower, the bank's better off,
Why?
because then the real interest rate is higher.
Yeah, exactly. So then, the other way, in the other scenario, if the inflation rate is higher, then I'm going to be better off because I'm paying off that loan with cheaper dollars, essentially, down the road. But what inflation does do is it hurts individuals on fixed incomes. So retirees that have a pension, same amount comes in the mail every month, they're going to be hurt by this. Indexing of loan amounts is common in countries with high varying inflation rates. So they won't have one inflation rate, they'll have an inflation rate that's tied to a specific number or a specific index or something like that. So the inflation rate might be, or the interest rate might be, 4% plus this inflation number that we're using. So high inflation is varying inflation. It just means it changes a lot. We don't know what to get if we always have interest rates that are changing. Years ago, in 1896, this is one of the case studies in the book. My 11th grade U.S. history teacher made a big deal about this. So so I figured I'll make a big deal about it, I guess. So we had the free silver movement and the election of 1896. So this was essentially the Progressive Party was trying to take on the two-party system. Funny enough, we're right back at that. So what they found is that the money supply had decreased. So we had deflation of 26%, which we just said creditors are going to have a real good time with that because their real interest rate has just gone up a lot. So the proposed solution to this was to switch to a bimetallic system. Instead of just having gold, we would use gold and silver, which would be used to mint for our currency. It would increase the money supply, and therefore we would increase inflation, or at least stop deflation. But we didn't get this. What we got instead was we found a bunch of gold in Alaska, Australia, and Southern Africa, so our money supply went up anyway. So everyone was kind of happy, I guess. So one benefit of inflation is cuts in nominal wages are rare. So this is what I was talking about before. So if you have a 2% increase in wages, but inflation has gone up 3%, your purchasing power is going to go down. So this is a way that a firm can lower your real wage, essentially. Just be smarter than the firm and make sure you're paying attention to inflation rates. If they offer you 3% and you say, well, inflation was 4% last year, you know they're trying to give you a pay cut. But it still looks like you're getting an increase, because nominally you're getting an increase, but in real terms, you're getting a decrease.
So your wages be higher than inflation.
What?
Want your wages to be higher than inflation.
You want them to at least be the same as
Is
inflation.
that the same with when you put money into like savings account? I just want to make sure it has enough, so you're not losing or any kind of savings kind of.
Savings accounts nowadays definitely do not have inflation rates.
Like there's like my CD, I think it was. I had like one of those certificate deposits. I was making my bills make out of those things. Isn't like inflation like 3% or something? Because it was making like maybe like 1.9. It was like just below what it should have been.
So you're essentially loaning the bank money
Yeah.
more than you should have. But savings accounts and CDs are very low risk, so that's why you really don't get a lot from them. All right, hyperinflation. So, so I was way off. It's not 200% a month. It's 50% a month, so it's 1% a day. So cost of hyperinflation. So we have the shoe leather costs are higher. Again, people are going to be leaving money in their bank account because they want it to grow faster because their money's losing value so quickly. So you have to go to the bank a lot to get money, and businesses have to devote a lot of energy to cash management. Menu costs become larger. You're going to change your prices much more frequently if the prices are changing a lot. But remember, you still have that cost of printing and changing prices. You have to take time out to adjust prices, figure out a new price, then go print the menu. So it also affects the tax system, since in most tax systems there's a delay between when the tax is levied and when it is paid to the government, causing the real tax revenue of the government to fall substantially. So if you're taxed, let's say $500, fine, you're being taxed $500, but you don't have to pay it for 6 weeks. The government just lost out on a bunch of money because of inflation. That $500 is not the same, especially if we're talking about 50% inflation. They might only, in real, like if we use that dollar amount, they might only be able to purchase half of what they were originally planning on purchasing with that money. And it's also inconvenient because you don't know what prices are going to be. What's nice is nowadays we can go to the grocery store, and if we spend $100 a week on groceries, we can generally buy the same thing every week for $100. I mean, sometimes, you know, you get lucky, you get a sale or whatnot, but we have consistent prices. So what causes hyperinflation is this excessive growth in the money supply. And it's mostly because of lack of government revenue and the inability to borrow, that they'll just keep printing. That's why it's usually developing countries. I guess, is that the technical term now, developing?
Yeah.
We're like third world.
Anymore.
I don't think we say third world anymore. I think it's developing. I only recently found out that there was a second world. It was the communist governments. Do you guys know that?
Yeah, it was the ones that like they controlled and stuff, kind of. Right, that was like under the Soviet Union.
No. Soviet Union, that all was the second world. Even Cuba, second world, because they had a communist government.
I thought that I thought they were considered first world too, and then anything that was happening like where they already had control of like a place, like now where conflicts were occurring. So like if it was like I guess like it would be like China was communist, so I guess they would be considered
Second world.
Yeah.
USSR, second world.
I
Cuba,
see.
second world. First world, anything capitalist. Third world, everything else. But I only recently found that out. I thought it was very interesting. But so anyway, we usually have this problem in developing nations. It's resolved through cuts in government spending and raising taxes. Most of the time, that sounds like it's going to be a hard time for everybody. I also said I wanted to discuss hyperinflation in both Germany and Zimbabwe, but you all had Dr. Mihal. You all heard that talk before, right?
What's up?
About Germany and Zimbabwe, the hyperinflation. We talked about Germany right in the beginning. After World War I, they had hyperinflation because they kept just printing money. And essentially, you could burn the money and it would be more useful than trying to hold on to it and spend it.
So what they did is get rid of their currency system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that the only way you can get out of hyperinflation? Is there no way for a government to like absorb,
Well, where did I say?
swallow up?
Well, what I said here is that what you can do is you can cut government spending substantially and raise taxes.
Okay, so you just give
You
it
just
to the
pull
government.
money
You just
out
give
of
it
the,
money,
you just keep pulling money out of the system.
and that decreases the money supply.
Yeah. Which would cause incredible deflation.
Inflation.
Though if you're one of those people that socked away a ton of money and held on to it through the deflation, oh, you'd be good.
That'd be awesome.
But oftentimes they'll just change the currency out
Yeah.
at that point because
It's easier.
you don't want to use that currency that was worth so little now claiming it's worth so much that doesn't
trade
raise.
them? Like, is there like an exchange program to bring in like $1,000 or X dollars and becomes
It would depend on the government system.
everything's worthless then?
Yeah, I mean, they were printing like German marks, like a trillion, or say a trillion, or maybe it was a billion. I don't know. That's a lot of zeros to fit on a piece of paper. So I don't know if it'd be worth it to do that exchange.
So how would that happen now? So like if you had, and say you have all these people that hold money in stocks and stuff, like they're not holding cash. Like how all of a sudden, okay, hyperinflation, like, I guess the price.
The stock would also rise.
Yeah, the market would just
Inflation.
adjust the price.
But if you,
But also, if you have a U.S. company and you're invested in a U.S. company in the United States, and we experience hyperinflation, I'm sure that company is not going to be worth that kind of money because you have an unstable government. That means
So yeah.
usually
everyone's-
a $1 trillion government company can't develop in a nation that has an unstable government because who's going to protect the property rights? That's the thing. You have no intellectual property rights in an unstable government. When you have an unstable government, who's going to stop you from just robbing the store?
Yeah. I was trying, like, what were the inflation rates like in 2008? Like, what happened there?
I think it was very low inflation. But we could check. We have Bloomberg. Also, I'm sure you'll all be happy. There's only one slide left.
looks like 5.5%, if I'm in something correct here.
Yeah. What am I typing? Inflation. What command did you type in?
I literally typed in inflation. CPI high year over year.
And then how did you change the date?
I just went on description.
5 year. It was like 5 point mid 2008.
Yeah, that's what I.
It was like 5.5%. And in 2009 it was down to like 2.
Actually, it was negative
Negative 2,
two.
sorry,
Yeah.
negative 2, yeah, negative interest rates.
Yeah. So we had 5.5 up until September 2008. Though, if you notice, that's high for even the previous 8 years. Again, remembering 4% might even be high. 2 to 3 is the target nowadays. All right, let's see. And then we have our conclusion. All right. So variables measured in quantity and relative prices are called real variables. Just because that's, we're not changing our measurement. Variables expressed in terms of money are called nominal variables because the value of money changes, that measurement changes. And theoretical separation of real and nominal variables is called the classical dichotomy. Well, I guess Y and V might be our real variables. Nominal would be prices, no, money. Money and that. That's an amount. The amount of money in the system. V would be nominal, transactional. So,
B and Y.
Yeah.
No,
no, M and Y.
okay, yeah.
M is the amount of money in the system. It's just a, yeah. And then the irrelevance of money for real variables is called monetary neutrality. So essentially, if you take money out of the system, you can still make all of these adjustments. You could, well, I guess you also have to take P out. But money is the only thing that's changing our price level, right? Money, well, the quantity of money, that all of this is changing everything. But if you take money out of the system, you have monetary neutrality. If you just look at real variables, so you're leaving money in the system, or you're taking prices out. It's really weird.
Dr. I think he hates on that neutrality theory of money.
Yeah, no, he does not like it one bit.
Yeah.
And he talked about it a lot in international. That's why I was asking if anyone had taken it. All right, so there are no questions to do for next week, which I'm sure you're all very happy about. Thank you all for handing these in printed. I've decided that I don't like dealing with things that are in email, just because I lose them.
Is it okay that we, like me and Neve did them? By
Yeah,
email?
absolutely. You guys should work together, definitely.
Okay.
Because you should get in that habit. So this might dissuade you. I don't know. Well, in the fall, I used to stop by to check on the team, and I would stop by usually at like 6, and I'd be like, "All right, you guys have me for an hour and a half. You could ask questions." So I'd leave after an hour and a half, or if they weren't asking me questions, I would leave whenever. But they'd be in here sometimes till midnight, 1 a.m., just working together and working. They might have inefficiently used their time, I don't know. But, because some of them did sports where they were in practice till 8 o'clock. I don't remember what one of them did, but like sometimes he couldn't even get here till 8 o'clock at night. So that like he would work from 8 to midnight. That was just when he worked. But definitely work on, make sure you're communicating, working together is good. I mean, don't copy, but. Alright, so we are done. Everyone have a nice weekend.
Do you want me to just staple them
Sure.
together?
No, that's fine. But you're handing in separate ones, right?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is Neve's and that's
Yeah, that's
with my name is on it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I got real nervous that Dean Murphy was going to stay for lecture today. He was in earlier.
I thought you were still in.
We wouldn't, we probably would not have gone out at this time.
I was looking would have chimed in.
He would have chimed in, and I probably would have just like held you guys longer, like talked slower. Though it is only 1 credit, technically I do only have to lecture you guys an hour a week.
Is that actually the equation?
Yeah. No, but I think I'm probably also supposed to assign you 3 hours of homework a week. Because if you think about 3 credit classes, the rule is 3 hours of classwork, 9 hours of.
I didn't even know that rule, and that rule applies to no classes.
No, it does. Well, you haven't taken a Dr. DeWitt class.
I did.
Which one?
Math 108.
No, not that kind.